Thank you. Okay.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, click.
Good evening. My name is Rose, and we're here to present on resumes and PMFs. I'm going to introduce my group. We have Aaliyah, we have Dylan, we have Angelo, and we have Kirsten. What we're actually going to do, we're going to be sharing pertinent information that will benefit you when you are actually writing your resumes and PMFs. Knowledge. The knowledge you will gain from this presentation are points on what you should not do, and what should be included on the PMF or resume. This information will also assist you with preparing a winning resume to get you on interviews. Resume. What is a PMF? A PMF is a personal marketing folio. It is a summary of brief written account of your personal, educational, and professional qualifications and experience, as that prepared by an applicant for a job that you choose to apply for. What is the meaning of a personal marketing folio? First, PMF is a quick advertisement of who you are. Secondly, it is a snapshot of you with the intent of capturing and emphasizing interests and abilities to secure you an interview with an employer. What is the purpose of a PMF? The purpose of a PMF is to provide a summary of skills, abilities, and accomplishments. Potential employers review PMFs and resumes and typically screen applicants overall. The purpose of a PMS is simply to get you an interview. What is the goal of a PMF? The goal of a PMF is the goal of a personal marketing portfolio is obtaining an interview to meet with an employer they want and to make sure all of the information required for a position is included on the PMF to check you out in person before they hire you. PMF success. As you can see, it's actually just accepting a position and actually being given the opportunity to be hired, basically. A marketing folio to an employer with all of your goals, education accomplishments, and other necessary requirements. This affords you the opportunity of successfully landing your dream job. Okay, this is an important slide because it's based on the importance of contact information. I have actually put three different slides together. Well, it's one slide with everything on it, different ways to actually let you know that your name and contact number, contact information should always be accurate. Email should always be professional. And basically, this is what this is saying. Also, at the end, excuse me, also on this slide, should have added um, I should have added LinkedIn at the end, but I'm just showing you now because LinkedIn actually gives you where the person worked, their education, their skills, and everything else that can be considered on your application. Social media accounts: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Your contact information always allows potential employers to research you online. So, like an FYI, always be sure to set your privacy settings for social media. This is a resume, what a resume with specific job descriptions, which this is for a bank teller. You should always set your resumes according to what jobs you are applying for. They should always be specific for the particular position, which this particular position is a bank teller. Your resume. Is there such a thing as a perfect resume? No. Career counselors and corporate recruiters alike agree that one resume can't possibly present your skills and experience effectively to every potential employer. Therefore, there is no such thing as a perfect resume. Okay, this is my powerful action verbs slide. You should always try to use verbs like instead of using like led, you executed, you publicized, you delegated. And these are just positive words that you can use on your resume. These are keywords used to punch up your resume writing. PMF requirements. Your PMF should include at least 10 skills that link your experience to the job. It could be applying again. It is very important to put correct contact information on the PMF. Briefly describe the skills, work experience, education, and other essential information for doing the job. This is a proper titles slide, and this is just examples. Okay. And this is just examples of different areas like career objectives, core competency, professional experience. This just exhibits titles which are also known as resume titles. And there you can see where they're located, and they allow a recruiter to see quickly and concisely what makes this job right for the person that is applying. This is bullets and descriptions. They're like outlined like for five. It's just a bullet with the descriptions. They're brief descriptions listing job duties, skills, and work history as separate points. This is where you can really take ownership of your experience and accomplishments. This is grammar and spelling. This is grammar and spelling. First impressions matter. You should always, before printing your resume, you should save it, and you should also check for grammar. You could run a spell check, but sometimes when you run a spell check, you get mixed up with different like homonyms. You can have like a meaning two and two, TWO and two. You should always check and always ask a friend or a colleague or a family member to check for errors. Okay, this is the outline. The outline is usually better because it's clarity and ease of use and reasons or for a single page resume which stands out to employers. Only relevant experience information should be placed on the PMF. Things that can be eliminated are objectives, high school education. This is personal experience. Now, I have a personal experience in reviewing resumes and contacting applicants for interviews. I often notice that while reviewing multiple applications, I find that applicants neglect to outline information on specific skills relative. So I just want to stress that it is very important to specify all of your skills to help you get an interview. On conclusion, I hope that you have learned something from this overall brief introduction. Okay, and now I will pass it on to Aaliyah, and she will be discussing looking at your personal marketing plan. Thank you.
So, good evening. I'm going to talk about audience. So, who is your audience? Job descriptions, job posts, and how to stand out from others. So, a recruiter or a hiring manager are the ones who looks at your PMF. Um, Usually, they're looking together, going based off the job descriptions and how your skills match that. And that's why it's important to understand the job description of job posting. So know your audience. Be sure to highlight skills that are related to the job. The job description will let you know what they're looking for so you can tailor your resume to fit it. And when you tailor your resume to the job, think about how you fit the position, what makes you unique. The organization needs to see how your strengths, your skills, and qualifications match. So I was applying for an internship since my sophomore year, and I just kept wondering why I was never getting a call. And I actually went down to the Career Development Center to Amy Rhino, and she helped me fix my resume. And I ended up applying to NBC 10, where I'm currently at right now. And she helped me put on my resume what was relevant, what was important, and align my skills from previous jobs here at Rowan to HR intern for that position. So we put on there my administrative skills and some of my HR courses that I took here at Rowan. So then I ended up getting a call and I took time out to write down my skills and I interviewed at NBC, ended up getting a position. So speaking from a hiring manager's perspective, so a lot of the hiring managers, especially recruiters, they get thousands of resumes a day. In fact, they're like back to back, and majority of the resumes miss the mark because they're all so much alike. And talented people aren't getting jobs because they don't know how to craft their resume to fit the job description. They just have one resume for every single job, and that's where they make a lot of mistakes at. And a lot of hiring managers say, don't just claim that you're different, actually show that. Um, and stand out from others. That's like the most important thing you can do. You don't want to be just like everyone else and keep presenting the same resume. So job postings, like I said, don't make the mistake of sending the same resume over and over again to different employers, and carefully read the job description, because if you read it, a lot of times your resume doesn't even align with the job descriptions already, and that's where you have to tailor it. And the hiring manager wants your resume to jump out at them. So keywords is a big thing. Job search takes place online and in person. So remember, recruiters they won't even see your resume if some of the keywords don't come up. So for example, we recruited for a digital intern at NBC 10, and for digital, we need people who are in social media. So if you have social media up there as your on your resume, that could stand out. So motivation, the language in your resume will tell your employer your intentions and motivation. So I always ask myself, how bad do you want it? Are you passionate about it? And after doing it 1,000 times, are you still going to want to continue doing it? And the impact. So when doing your resume, try to pick out, some important things that you did at your previous job or your current job, and look at the impact that you made. So a lot of employers and recruiters, they want you to use amounts, so like dollar amounts or everything that you did, but in detail. So professional summary, the main thing is to get noticed by a recruiter or hiring manager who only has seconds to look at your resume. So resumes that receive the most attention include professional, a summary, and it gives you an opportunity to sell yourself and tell the recruiter what you can bring to the table. So recruiters only look at resumes for like less than 20 seconds. It's not very long at all. So you figure you had 15 seconds to show the recruiter what you had to bring to the table, your skills, and usually when recruiters are analyzing your resume, they are looking at the top part half of your resume, so that's the most important part. And skills qualifications that match job descriptions. So if you have more than 2 pages, most recruiters aren't even going to look past that, especially if you're just getting out of college. So the most important section to focus on is the job experience, because that tells um, what skills and what things you learned from previous jobs that you could bring to this job. And it shows like when you have a reliable like track record of jobs, just shows that you're somebody who can keep a job, and everything you have done up to this point makes you unique. Nobody has the same amount of job experience or the same job that you have. Even if you worked in fast food, you can still take those skills and relate them to your next job. They're all transferable. Everyone faces, challenges, and they they can so over the summer as an intern, I helped recruit interns for this fall semester. So we had applicants coming through, like sending through email, and also like a prof jobs type of link. So me and the coordinator, we sat down and went through like hundreds of resumes, and we ended up doing a yes and no pile. And then we went to the hiring manager, and she looked at the resumes, and I tell you, it was like less than 15 seconds. She did it so fast, and I was like, wow, if your resume is not good, you have no chance. Like, it's extremely fast. So that's something to keep in mind. And like the biggest thing is to just stand out. Like, you want to be unique, and just remember, like, don't keep sending the same resume to every single employer. Look at the job description and try to tailor your resume. So next we have Angela, who's going to talk about creating a PMF.
How's everyone doing? I'm going to talk about creating a resume or a PDF. I'm gonna use resume for my presentation. Just know that a resume is actually going to be the first actual piece of information that an employer gets in order to weed out the applicants to get an interview. So you have to remember that you're going to basically be selling yourself. You have to make sure your resume is an ad for you. Just think about when, or if you try to sell or even buy anything, there's an ad for it. Instead of pictures like you would use to buy or to buy something or to sell something, you have to use your resume to actually sell yourself. Your resume has to scream out at your audience, which is a recruiter or an assistant looking at your resume. They have to just scream out, say, "Hey, pick me. I want to be the person that you need to interview for this particular job." It just has to stand out, and you have to make sure that you're going to be the one to actually get that interview to possibly get that job. Another thing that I just realized is that the time it takes to complete your resume is about 40 hours, which is a lot of time. I don't know what I've done for 40 hours besides this work, but you have to realize that one in every 100, excuse me, one in every 200 resumes, that person is going to get the interview. So you have to make sure that you put the work in. When you actually do your resume, you have to make sure you're in a good mood. You don't want to be in a crappy mood and be like, "Oh, I have to do my resume," and just knock it out and be done with it. You're not going to get an interview. Well, you might get an interview, but it might not be how you want it to be. Excuse me, not how you want it to be. You might not get the interview that you want, possibly. Who knows? But you have to make sure that the top part of your resume is good. It's going to make you or break you. This is the first thing that recruiters or assistants look at when they see your resume. If they look at it and don't like it, you're not going to get an interview. You have to remember too, as Aaliyah said, they go through hundreds and hundreds of resumes. So you have to realize that you have to make sure that your resume stands out. Um, Next slide. All right, so with that said, if you guys remember what we did in class, Professor Casper actually gave us the resume paper. Uh, as you felt, it had a different feel, different color. Again, when those recruiters are shuffling through them, they might fill it and pull it out, and that's yours, and hopefully it has that great content on it for them to give you a call, and hopefully you get the job. I used to work for a place called Environment Corp. We did industrial hearing testing. I was a supervisor there, and I had the luxury of sitting directly next to the HR manager who would get the resumes coming in, and I would happen to just go through them, and then next thing you know, he would start asking me to help because eventually these people would be my employees, my techs. So it was kind of cool actually helping with the process of screening applicants at that particular job that I had. And so now I'm going to give you a few tips about building your resume. This is something I found out too. You need to build your resume backwards. You need to have your accomplishments. You have to do your accomplishments first. You should do your accomplishments first. Job description, then your format. We're all so used to just starting at the top, name, information, and then just doing everything from there. To start, you need to brainstorm. Brainstorm all your accomplishments. Um, what have you done that made you proud of your job? Did you save the company money? Did you make the company money? Did you get an Employee of the Month award? All these things are your accomplishments, and you just need to put all these things together. You're going to have more than you need. Again, this is you're seeing both. Going with accomplishments now. You're going to need more accomplishments than you think you need. On your job description, you should probably have 3 to 5 accomplishments. Hopefully, you'll have more than that. So when you go to the actual interview, when you get the actual interview, you can actually talk about other accomplishments because they already have the ones that you were just talking about in your resume. The job description. The job description just needs to, of course, say the job that you had, what you did, and then a little brief, 2 or 3 sentences of brief description of what you did, and underneath that, you'll have your actual accomplishments in it. And after that, you're going to format it. You're going to make sure that it looks nice and neat. You're going to make sure you don't have any grammatical errors. You're going to make sure that you spell your email right. You're going to make sure that you have everything that looks good so that the eyes can flow down towards your objective. And hopefully, when they read that top part, they'll take it and read the rest of your resume and hopefully give you a call. Bullets. This is not to shoot the people that don't give you the job. These are important because these are the most important part of your resume. Once they take your resume and you pass that top part, the top, I guess, test, the top half of it, and they read your bullets, that's the first thing their eyes are going to go to. So you need to make sure that those bullet points, which are all your achievements, are on point. And with those bullet points is actually the heart and soul of your resume. If those bullet points, which is your achievements, aren't good and catered towards that particular job, you're going to get put in the no pile. That's something that you don't want. You have to go back to the drawing board and redo your resume. You just have to keep in mind that who your target audience is. You have to make sure that you cater your particular resume to that audience. If it's a particular job that has certain qualifications, certain skills or certain accomplishments possibly that you need, make sure that you cater to that. Of course, every resume isn't the same for each job. And the goal of it, besides getting an interview, is to actually knock their socks off. You need to make sure that your particular resume stands out. You have to be a great candidate, not just a good candidate. So you need to make sure that your resume is on point. So that's putting that time into it. And this last slide, I wish they would have won yesterday. I'm going to pass this off to Dylan, and hopefully he'll catch this, unlike the Eagles receivers did yesterday. And he's going to talk to you about applicant tracking systems.
Hi everyone, my name is Dylan Weimer, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about applicant tracking systems. And I'm also going to be talking about why they're very important to you as you are starting to apply to possible future careers. I thought the bear picture was really hilarious, but maybe it's not so funny.
I love it.
I thought it was hilarious. He looks like he's waving. So one point that I want to go over is what is an applicant tracking system. An applicant tracking system is a software application that allows the electronic handling of recruitment needs. So when you think of applicant tracking systems, you need to consider how companies use them. So they help manage recruitment processing and hiring needs. Now, applicant tracking systems can be perceived as good or bad. One reason why they can be perceived as good is because they help weed out the unqualified applications for the employer. A reason why they might be perceived as bad is because they're very hard to get your resume through. Also, applicant tracking systems are known to make mistakes. Now, some features of applicant tracking systems would include viewing applications. Another feature would be that it gives the ability for the recruiter to search keywords in the resumes that are submitted to that job. And also some applicant tracking systems can give ratings on the resumes that have been submitted. And some issues that go along with applicant tracking systems include what people call a black hole. And the black hole can be when you submit a resume and maybe it doesn't qualify or go with the job description you're applying for, and it gets pushed into this corner of the applicant tracking system, and it never comes out of there. So you're almost done for at that point. For me, my only experience with applicant tracking systems was when I worked at Chipotle Mexican Grill. I was a kitchen and a service manager, and I was in charge of hiring and onboarding. And I used Taleo, which is an applicant tracking system. We don't necessarily accept a lot of resumes at Chipotle, but I used it to get the applicant's information and invite them in for an interview, since we pretty much interview everyone there. Now, I'm gonna give you guys some tips for maybe getting through the applicant tracking system. One of those tips is gonna be really easy. It's to plan your resume. You have to think about what the applicant tracking system is looking for, and you wanna take what it's looking for and push it into your resume. My second tip to you guys is gonna be that keywords do matter. You have to think about what keywords you're gonna place into your resume for the job. Keywords are words of great significance. they're used to attract the attention of the applicant tracking system and the recruiter that could possibly be reviewing your application as well. Sorry. Applicant tracking systems look for keywords that match the keywords that are in the job description for the job that you are applying for. So for an example, let's say the job description uses the words organized, collaborator, and positive. You might want to take those keywords and push those into your resume, and it might give you a better chance in getting an interview. Not all keywords are equal though. You have to think about that and not go online, go to Google and start Googling good resume keywords and taking those keywords and pushing them in your resume. That's not going to be a good idea because those keywords are going to be useless, well, could possibly be useless for the job that you are applying for. You should be limited to the keywords that are in the job description of the job you're applying for. Applicant tracking systems only find what they've been told. They can get tripped up very often by things such as hyphens, apostrophes, abbreviations, very simple things that you wouldn't think of. A big one also is synonymous wording, and I'll go in more depth about that later. The placement of your keywords matter as well. You have to consider the location of your keywords in your resume when you're creating your resume for the job that you're applying for. So for an example, the application tracking system might be looking for the word consulting, and you decided to use a synonym of consulting and put advising. That's not going to be a good idea because the applicant tracking system is not looking for the word advising, so it's going to think you have no experience in consulting. Another tip is that keyword stuffing is a no-no. You do not take a bunch of keywords from the job description and shove them into your resume. That is also a bad idea. And the biggest reason why it's a bad idea is because that can flag your resume in the applicant tracking system and push you into that black hole that we referenced earlier. You should probably use only about 2 to 3 keywords from the job description in your resume. Your job title matters in your resume in the applicant tracking system. Your job title shows the applicant tracking system what your experience is. So you might want to tweak your job title a little bit in your resume, as long as you're not making it too far-fetched. It might seem wrong, but it's all right. So matching your job title to the job description of the job that you're applying for will help you get through the ATS screening process. As an example, let's say that your past job was a business advisor and the job that you're looking to apply for is business advisory consultant. You might want to change advisor to advisory and add in the word consultant. My next tip is simplicity is key. You want to keep your resume simple. This could include formatting, font, and maybe even your document type. So what I learned from applying to jobs is that if you go onto the company website, sometimes it will even tell you, we want this in Word format, we want this in a PDF. My next tip is that you need to avoid tables and graphs. It's a little more old school from what I can tell, but applicant tracking systems don't necessarily always pick up the tables and they might not read the tables. So stick with standard headers such as work experience, professional experience, and try to stay away from non-traditional headers such as what I've done. It's a little tacky and the system's not going to pick that up properly. My last tip for you guys is to keep it human. You're going to want to keep it human because when you submit your resume into the application tracking system and it goes through and makes it through, it's probably going to reach a recruiter, which is a human. So when you construct your resume, make sure you're constructing it for the ATS and for the human that's going to be reading it. So in conclusion, I have talked to you guys about the application tracking system and how that might affect you. Application tracking systems are going to stay. They're not something that it seems like is going to be gotten rid of soon. They are here to stay because they work for employers. They work very well for employers, even though they might not seem like they're working for you. Thank you guys for listening to me, and now I'm going to hand it off to Kirsten.
He's still handing it off. Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Kirsten and I'm going to be talking to you about how to finalize your resume and make sure that you are not putting anything that could harm your resume or damage it into it. We want to make sure that your resume is outstanding by the time you submit it to an employer. That way you're able to obtain an interview. So I'm going to be discussing a lot of do and don'ts common mistakes and other things that you should avoid when you're writing your resume. And that way, when you're looking it back over, you can take these things out if you caught yourself writing about them. We're going to discuss some phrases and then give some scenarios and ideas that you should not include. First, I want to discuss about the format of your resume. You should not be making it look like it's too busy. You do not want a ton of words in your format, and you don't want to just shrink your resume to try to fit everything in there. You want it to look like it's filling the resume paper and that it's formatted correctly. You also want to be making sure that you're printing it out on resume paper. This is crucial because recruiters and employers can tell the difference between resume paper and regular paper. You also want to make sure that you are printing enough for every person that you're going to be handing a resume to and also for yourself. So I just want to let you guys know about some of the mistakes. If you are writing your resume and you realize that you're leaving out specific details, like if you're a supervisor, you should be putting how many people you supervise. If you supervise 50 people, that will look so good on your resume and it should be included. Do not leave that out. Time management is also a key factor and it looks very good on your resume because it's a good quality to have. So if you're working a restaurant job and you think, hey, well, that doesn't really look good on my resume because it doesn't, relate to it, it's still okay because you're showing that you're going to school and you also have a second job at the same time. You also want to make sure that if there's gaps, that you're not really putting that, like if you had a baby or something, because although parenting is a huge job in itself, it doesn't really need to be on your resume since it doesn't relate to any traits that you would have. So now I'm going to be discussing 5 things that are phrases that might help and help you avoid that could actually damage your resume. You want to make sure that you do not get rejected and that you go into the yes pile. So with that being said, some phrases would be job duties. You don't need to necessarily write your job duties on your resume because you should be focusing more on your achievements. Employers would rather hear about the success of your job and things that you contributed to make it more personalized rather than just things that you list that are necessary requirements. You also want to avoid action verbs. You want to use action verbs and avoid words like had or led. Like I had to review papers. You want to say I organized and managed paperwork in this kind of field or subject. You want to make sure that you use words like manage, experience, stuff like that. You also do not want to put coursework on your resume. Although it may seem like you want to let them know that these are the classes that you're taking, if you're putting your education and you're showing that you're going to have a degree in human resource management, it's pretty assumed that you're going to have to take the prerequisites of the class, which would be accounting or finance principles or stuff like that. So you don't really need to write that. You also want to avoid skills as in results oriented. You're supposed to be getting your results. You're supposed to be working for your goals. So it's not necessary to put that you're a hard worker because we're supposed to be assuming that you are a hard worker. That's why you want to work for us. You also want to avoid overwording. Like I said, by making your resume too busy, you want to make sure that you don't put too many words into it. Like for instance, if you say my skills, well, of course you're talking about your skills. Who else's skills are you talking about? It's not relevant to your resume. You want to make sure that you avoid all of these tips so that way when an employer looks at your resume, they are choosing you rather than the person next to you. You want to make sure that your resume is the one that's picked and not rejected. So that way you're able to obtain the interview or maybe even the second interview. Now I'm going to discuss about a story that I actually did. I rushed to finish my resume once. I printed out a copy. I dressed very nicely and I went over to a Bank of America. That's where I wanted to get a job at. I presented my resume to the employer, introduced myself, And after I left, I realized that I had just copied and pasted because I wanted the fonts to be correct and the same spacing and everything. And I never changed the company that I worked for. So it looked like I was at the same company with two different things. And I was so embarrassed. But I guarantee that they laughed at me after I walked out the door. But long story short, I actually now work at Bank of America in a different branch, and the same lady that I introduced myself to happens to be a fill-in manager sometimes, but she does not realize that that story had happened the previous year before. So I find that a little funny. You don't really want to be like that and hand in a resume that was not looked over. So you want to really make sure that you spend enough time looking through all of your resume and picking all the details, double checking it. It's really crucial to spend about 40 hours, like Angelo said. You need to make sure that everything is perfect before you hand that in so that you don't lose your shot at obtaining a job that you really dream for. You should also make sure that you have reviewers. Each of your resumes for each job should be reviewed multiple times by different people. You do not want to, not have it reviewed and then somebody catch something that you could have fixed by just having one other person look over it. You also could read your resume out loud, and that will help give you factors on if it doesn't sound right, if it doesn't flow right, and what to change. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope that you include these tips when you're writing your resume and make sure that you don't make these kind of mistakes that I'll be in our presentation next time. Thank you.